I think we should start, and people may join when they want to do it. Okay. So I welcome all the panelists and the speakers, as well as all the participants for this webinar today on large-scale battery technologies. So this is technologies, market, and grants, as well as for the large-scale project developments in Australia and India. So we have got today four presenters, including myself, and then I will speak on the current and emerging technologies. So I will share my presentation. Then we have got Mr. Prafulla Pathak. He is the president of Solar Energy Society of India, and I will read out his bio. Yes, okay. I think Mr. Prafulla Pathak, he will speak for himself. So I don't.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, just to give your introduction. Yeah. Or just let me complete. Then we after you, we will have. So you will speak on the current market opportunities for large-scale batteries in India. Then we have Mr. Amarjot Singh Rathore. He's based in Canberra, in Australia, and he will speak on the grants for large-scale batteries in Australia. Then we have got Mr. Manoj Singh. He will speak on the project development opportunities for large-scale batteries deployment in India. So I think I have got the bio for Manoj Singh and Amarjot. So it will be better if you can speak yourself. That will be better. So I start with Mr. Prafulla Pathak, and then and rest will come after that. Mr. Prafulla Pathak, you just introduce yourself. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dilawar Singh ji. I am Prafulla Pathak. I am currently president of Solar Energy Society of India. Ours is the apex body in the field of solar sector. It was formed in 1978, and we have many of our members who have been to the extreme high positions in the policy making and decision making. I myself had an industry experience of 30 plus years. Of that, first 20 years is purely in power sector, that to be in power generation. Later on, I have the experience of the other means distribution transmission sector, and equally since around 2010, I'm very well connected with the power corridors in Delhi, and that to be in the renewable sector. Whatever that has been happening, or that has we witnessed since 2010 till today, I'm lucky to be a close watcher or sometimes a participant in all these activities in Delhi. My background is basically I'm an electronics engineer, but since last 10 years, I'm in power corridors, power sector in New Delhi, and we are trying to suggest or present the observations which we had through the government organizations, non-government organizations, and we are interacting with the bodies which are working for the betterment of solar in India. Thank you.
Okay, then thank you very much, Mr. Pathak. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. Okay. My screen showing something else. Okay. Now I invite Mr. Manoj Singh to introduce himself. Mr. Manoj.
Thanks, Dr. Dilawar. I am associated in renewable sector since last 17 years. So I worked with EPC companies, developers, financial institutions, and got in and out what is happening in India and what need to be done. So I am very much fortunate, to work with various stakeholders of this sectors and get insight what things are missing or what things are needed to develop and deploy renewables in country. So right now I have started a startup called Net Zero Think, where we are addressing companies' requirement how to become net zero. So we are starting with the measurement process and then helping them to plan out a reduction and offsetting strategies. So thanks, Dr. Dilawar. Thanks for giving me opportunity to speak in this session. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Manoj. Amarjot, now your turn. So just introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Dilawar. I'm Amarjot Ratford. I'm based in Canberra. I'm an electrical engineer by training. I worked in the Australian public service in various departments, and I've spent 18 years on the Renewable Energy Target Scheme in Australia, which was the first scheme of its kind in the whole world, which introduced incentives in the form of renewable energy certificates in 2001. At that time, there were a few states in the US which had certificate schemes. So I worked on that scheme for 18 years. Then I also worked with Dr. Alan Finkel, who was the Australian chief scientist to investigate a blackout in South Australia as his principal advisor. So I have lots of experience working in the renewable electricity sector in Australia, and currently I'm working for the ACT government, which is the Australian Capital Territory government, looking after batteries, energy storage batteries. We have several projects in the Australian Capital Territory where large batteries, up to 100 megawatt and 300 megawatt, are being installed within the electricity grid. That's my kind of background, and I'm also the previous vice president, and I worked with Dr. Dilawar for many, many years. I'll cover the funding round for batteries later on after Dr. Dilawar asked me to do it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Amarjot. Yeah. So now it is my turn to introduce myself. So actually, I live in Australia last 30 years. So my background in solar energy from 1979, and I think I am one of the very early member of the Solar Energy Society of India. I think I joined in 1980. Yeah. When I joined IIT in 1979, and immediately after I joined the SESI. And I worked after my PhD in solar energy from IIT Delhi. I worked with this MNRE. This is now MNRE. Earlier was some other departments. Then I worked in IREDA, and also I worked in Gujarat Energy Development Agency. And for a short period, I also worked for Gujarat Punjab Agro, and I was responsible for setting up this Punjab Energy Development Agency. So now I'm involved in developing a green ammonia and green hydrogen project in Western Australia for export of the ammonia to various countries like Japan and South Korea, maybe in China also, because Chinese are talking to us right now. So this is the large project I'm doing here. This is the 310,000 tons of hydrogen and 800,000 tons of green ammonia, with the estimated project cost of $10.65 billion Australian dollars. So this is my introduction, and this today's webinar we have brought jointly with the Solar Energy Society of India, this think tank group where we have the more than 210 members. Then we have got this climate, energy and innovation group, and so these are and also this next zero think also with us today. So our objective with this International Business Council of Australia to bring various groups together, various organizations together, and to work in one direction to get something to be achieved jointly. So for this, the seminar today is mainly for this large scale batteries, but in the future we will also do more webinars. So last 2 years we are mainly doing online webinars. Only few events we have done in public, but let's see how long this will go. But we are very keen to go and joining the organizing other seminars and webinars like that in the future. So almost every month we are planning to do and cover various topics. Okay, so let's my turn is first. Let me start. So I am going to talk on the current and emerging large batteries technologies, but I will also cover some new technology in the emerging technology. Those are not for the large storage yet, but maybe in the future they may be good for large scale storage. So let me share my screen. I'm trying to do on the okay, so this is the, if you can see the screen, it is visible. Hello.
Yeah, it is visible.
Yes.
Okay. So this topic, the large scale battery storage, current and emerging technologies. So in this large scale battery storage technologies, so what we are looking for, the power coming from the grid, and we are storing in the electrochemical or chemical or mechanical or thermal form of energies. So also the advantage for this renewable energy, solar and wind. So we have to stabilize the fluctuations in the grid, and also the nature of this solar and wind energy. We don't get the power, continuous power for 24 hours, and also due to clouds, it is affected. So we require the batteries for different purposes also to control the grids also. So there are this number of technologies available as of today. So pump hydro electric storage. So everybody knows about it. It is very old technology. Then when you are generating the power from the dam, water coming down, and at the off-peak hours, you pump back and the same water into the reservoir. So that's called this back pumping of the water into the reservoir, and that and we call it the storing of the energy back. So in fact, there is no direct storage of energy. This is we are pumping back the water, and then again we are using that the kinetic energy to run the turbines. Then we have got the compressed air storage. So in that we store, compress the air and we store it. The other way of doing it also, you can liquefy of the air, and then compress it, and then use it as a storage. Then we have got this mechanical flywheel storage. And then I will go through details of all this. Then we have got lithium ion batteries. So this is very popular right now, and including for the cars and trucks and other vehicles. Then we have got molten metal battery storage, as well as the molten salt storage also. Then we have got the flow batteries also. So this in the large scale battery technology, we have got this lithium ion batteries, sodium ion batteries, the aluminum air batteries, hydrogen batteries, air liquid batteries, flywheel batteries, then nuclear diamond batteries, and the solar thermal energy storage type of batteries. Okay, if you go to the first for the lithium ion batteries, those are more popular, and not only in the vehicles, they are more popular in large scale battery storage also. So this Amarjot will speak on the details of this lithium ion batteries and the projects, the 100 megawatt and 300 megawatt projects already installed in Australia. Then also number of projects also happen in India and happening right now. So if you see the graph here, so on the lowest side we have this lead acid batteries. So earlier we were using the lead acid batteries for the large scale battery storage. And if I give you the example of the first project, the hybrid battery storage project done in Gujarat in the village of Kalyanpura, that is near Anand in Gujarat. So I was involved in that project in my career. That was the first energy storage project in India in that time, 1985. So I have some experience also of that, but I'm not going through that experience now. But I'm just to be concentrated on my presentation. So this is the lead acid batteries on the lower side. Then we have got the nickel cadmium batteries, then nickel metal hydride batteries, then the lithium ion batteries. So lithium ion are the more technological advanced batteries and used in various large scale applications. Then we have got the sodium ion batteries. So those are the new type of batteries, and only right now one company is manufacturing in UK, and also one company in Denmark also trying to manufacture those batteries. And recently the Reliance also has announced that they want to go to manufacturing of the sodium ion batteries. So those batteries are also very comparable to the lithium ion batteries, but price wise this is not established yet. They are cheaper or they will be more expensive, but they seems to be competing with the lithium ion batteries soon. So they are not in the large scale manufacturing yet. Well, when they will go for large scale manufacturing, then we can talk about the cost and how they are cost competitive. But the energy density wise, they are almost same as the lithium ion batteries. So this is the you might have a lot of about this aluminum air batteries. So they are very efficient batteries, and their energy density is almost 8 times of the lithium ion and the sodium ion batteries. The only thing, in fact, these are not the batteries. These are the generator itself. So when the air through water reacts with the aluminum, that generates the electricity, because that comes in the form of a box. So that's why the name is given as a batteries. And also they don't give any pollution. So they are very good, but you can't recharge them. So they are not the rechargeable. You have to replace them. When they exhausted all, then you have to replace them. Then we have got the flow batteries. So those are also in the market for last 15-20 years. And the Australian company has took the lead on those batteries. So in those one, you have the 2 tanks, and in the one of the tank you have the sulfuric acid. One tank is empty, but you have to pump the sulfuric acid from one tank to another tank through this membrane, and then those membranes electrically charged, and the one tank, when it filled, it is charged. So when you have to discharge the battery, then you have to pump the this electrolyte back to the previous tank. So those batteries works on those principles. So there are 2 companies in Australia. They commercialize those batteries. Then we have got this hydrogen batteries. So this battery is also developed in Australia, but they are right now for the small scale applications. But you can use those batteries for the large scale applications also, because as much as you can store it either in cylinder or in big tanks, and then you feed back to the electrolyzer to generate the power. So they don't itself store the energy, they store the hydrogen, and then you are using that fuel to generate the power through fuel cells. Then this air liquid batteries. So you have to liquefy the air, and you can compress it, and then you use it back to run the generator. And then those are quite efficient, and few projects are happening mainly in UK. On that 50 megawatt size of projects are under construction. So the efficiency wise, they are not as much as you can expect from sodium ion batteries or the lithium ion batteries. They are almost only 55% 55% efficient only, but they are very cost effective. Then the new name in the battery technology has come now, the nuclear diamond batteries. So those are right now being tested for the small scale applications for telephone, laptop, and very small other small applications. But in the future, they can be used for the large scale applications also. So in fact, they are also not the batteries. They are like the aluminum air batteries. They are also the generator. So you have the nuclear material and store in the graphite and or diamond, and then that generates the power inside of that. The electrons are generated. Then when you connect to some heat device, very small heat they require to generate the power. So they are still in the lab scale only. This is another battery technology, flywheel batteries. So in these batteries, you have to run the motor at very high RPM, around 9,000 RPM. So on the spinning of those motors, then the battery is the energy is stored, and then when you slow down this speed, then you can take out the energy from there. So they are also very popular in USA mainly, and also these few projects happen in Australia. So this Amber Kinetics, this is a US company. They have supplied these flywheel batteries to Australia. So none of the manufacturer in Australia. So they are quite efficient and also cost effective. So their life cycle is 20 to 30 years. And also they don't give any pollution. This is on the solar thermal side. So they are the parabolic trough. So you heat the oil in those troughs, and then you store. And then when you require, then you can run the turbine and generate the power. Then this molten salt storage also. So you can store the molten salt by reflecting the sun radiations on a tower, and then they filled with the molten salt, and that molten salt is liquefied from the heat, and then you can store that heat into it, and then you run the turbine to get out the energy from there. Then there is a company in South Australia, 1414 Corporation. They have developed the new technology, and they are storing energy in mainly the heat in silicon metal. And the silicon metal melting temperature is 1414 degrees centigrade. That's why they put the name of this company 1414. So this is still in the trial stage. I don't think they have done the commercial viability of that, but maybe Amarjot can put more light on it. Then this is another parabolic. This is next one is this dish technology, and then you can concentrate the solar light at the bottom of this dish, and then you take the heat to a storage tank, big storage tank that is filled of the bricks or iron wall or other materials, and then you store the heat inside of these. So these are the some of the technologies I highlighted today. So this was my presentation. And if there are any questions, I will be happy to answer after the presentation. There will be a session for 20 minutes for question and answers. So now I invite Mr. Prafulla Pathak to give his presentation on the current market opportunities for large-scale batteries in India. Yeah, Mr. Pathak, please.
Thank you, Dr. Dilawar Singh ji. I am very happy to know that what you have mentioned in your initial introduction, you are also associated with SECI since long. It's a pleasant surprise, pleasant thing for me. And that's in that view, I would like to welcome you and really appreciate the efforts you did in the sector and whatever the achievements you did. And definitely whatever the support we can provide to you from India by way of Solar Energy Society of India, definitely we will try to support whatever support is possible.
Okay, thank you very much for your words. And when I come to India, I am planning to come in April. Sure. I think I will have a meeting with you.
Yes, sure. Okay. Now coming to the topic which you have mentioned for me, or even when you suggested, I was very happy for the topic. The reason behind, as I introduced or as I told in my introduction, that the initial period of my career was in the power sector, particularly in generation, and I'm privileged to have witnessed the changes that has come in Indian power sector, then renewable energy introduction and all that. So I'll just take a few minutes to give some background what was there and how that will prove that the large-scale batteries in India will be, what type of opportunities it will have. So in initial days, when we were particularly I was associated with thermal power generation. And in thermal power, now we are trying to get out of that fossil fuel. That is what our aim is. But those were the days when the stable power supply, you mentioned about stability of grid and the quality of power supply. So in those days, the thermal power stations were those units who were relied for the supply, stable or continuous supply to the grid. And as we all are aware of, when we talk about grid, it's a demand and supply management. So these sources which were providing the supply to the grid, at those days, the concept or thought about having storage in the batteries and all that, it was not, it was very little, or it is as good as there was no much thought about storing the energy. The concept was only whatever you produce, you supply, or whatever you have to supply, you have to produce. But in recent things, whatever the changes that we have witnessed, we are introducing renewable energy, solar, wind, and all that. So the changes which we witness, so I will relate the today's position of high-scale battery storage with that which was there in somewhere 2008 or 9. We were having the problems in the electricity supply. India was short of almost 8 to 10% of the demand which we have. There was the days of having power cuts and all that. In that scenario, I remember initially 1 megawatt of solar plant installation, or there was some scheme, generation-based incentive scheme, which came up, which was floated by government, where 1 megawatt plants or 5 megawatt plants of solar energy were asked for or requested for. And naturally the utilities which were having, which were already in electricity sector and having a good fund position, they came forward, and that type of installation started. So I will relate today's energy storage by battery with that. Means we are in a very initial stage, and whatever the developments that had happened in the solar sector, the funding at a reasonable rates, then availability of space, these speed up capacity or the ability to install a solar plant quickly. So because of that, we have seen that there are a lot of changes, and now we are not talking about the megawatt capacity. We are talking about gigawatt, and that to be in 2-digit gigawatt installations, whether it is solar, wind, or whatever. So that has happened in last 10 years, and even our energy requirements, which were in those days, where what was there, so we have doubled or tripled our installed capacity in power sector, and we are aiming to have a renewable energy installations at 2030 or somewhere are equal to whatever our today's installed capacity, or likewise. So my basic thought which I want to share is, we are growing in a renewable sector, and we are trying to get out of fossil fuel based supply. Naturally, when we are thinking of all that, whatever the energy which we are aiming or will be getting will be through solar, wind, or renewable. And all these solar, wind, they need a good storage. And I think because of that, when we increase all these things, there was thought came about the storage. Then even today, when we are talking about this much megawatt of energy storage, high scale storage, it was not there, or we were not thinking, at least in India, about all these things. But the changes that has happened, that has made the situation that we need to work on storage, as Dr. Dilawar Singh has introduced the various means of storage which are available. So with the help of all these things, my thought is, whatever the installations which are going to enhance, and the capacities we are aiming to develop in 2030 or 2040. So at that period, the basic support will also be with the help of batteries. The technologies are changing, the capacities are enhancing. So naturally, these batteries will be these high installations of high-scale battery storages, that will prove to be a source when you have short of power. What I am trying to explain is, we will be getting power through solar or wind, this type of sources, and when, as Mr. Dilawar Singh mentioned, in a grid there is a peak hours, there are off peak hours. So when we are getting the energy from the resources available to us, and if it is in excess, naturally we have to store it. If it is not excess, then also we have to look in for the sources wherein we can store this energy in the batteries, and depending on the capacities and installations, these batteries can be a source of power when we are short of power. So looking at all these situations, I believe that whatever the capacities we are going to install through renewables and other modes in 2030 or 2040, the reliance on battery storage, high capacity battery storage, has to be there. As he was mentioning about 100 megawatt or 200 megawatt storages. So there are 3-tier cities in India where their requirement is around 100 megawatt or 200 megawatt. So the sources near to these cities can also be one good option. And basically, as we all are aware, or if not aware, I can tell you that for a grid, we need to have a distributed generation support. And if we can store the energy in these batteries, and if they are available, and they are going to give us a stable supply, stable source. So definitely these type of installations by way of distributed source points, definitely that will prove to be a good support to the grid, to the stability of the grid. And taking all these considerations, I'm very much confident that these high-scale battery storage installations are need of our. The government has started they have taken steps. The industry players, who are big players, they will also step in. That is what has happened in case of solar, means initiation by government and supported by the industry. We have seen the result. Similarly, PLI schemes has been announced by government. The infusion of funds for energy storage is going on by different ways. And as I was mentioning, the grid needs such type of high-scale storages, because that can stabilize, that will help the grid in stabilizing the things. And in that context, the opportunities are very much, as I was mentioning about the solar sector, it was in 2009 or 10, and solar sector in 2020. So similar will be the position of the high scale battery storage in India in next 10 years. So opportunities are enormous. The only thing is the cost and other factors which comes in, and how economical it is, because whatever the storage we are doing, and we are taking it as a source, so whether we are using it there and there only, or we are taking it to the other sector, that is what is happening in solar or other renewable energy. So that is the case. Otherwise, if the solar and batteries or wind and batteries, if they come together and they can provide a good option, I'm with my experience in the power sector and the grid operations, I'm very much sure that the next thing which we have to rely on, which we have to look in, or opportunities we are having, is a high scale energy storage. So that's all my view. I'm thankful to Dr. Dilawar Singh ji and their council, Australian council, for taking us as a partner. And on that note, I'll be also available for any question answers if there exist. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pathak. Now I invite Mr. Amarjot Singh for talking on the grants for large-scale batteries in Australia. So, Mr. Amarjot, please.
Thank you, Dr. Dilawar. Look, we are living in very interesting times in terms of battery storage. So battery storage can be divided into three main categories. One is like household batteries. So in Australia, the number of households that have energy storage battery is increasing quite rapidly. Then we can also mention the grid connected batteries. They are of two types. Batteries which are connected to the distribution network. They are of several types, such as community energy storage batteries, which are located next to the houses where people live, and they actually support the local distribution network. But the main thing I want to talk about today is the transmission connected batteries. So, and I'll focus on the funding that is being made available for transmission connected batteries. So in Australia, there are like state governments actually have their own funding arrangements, and they vary from state to state. And then there is funding from the federal government agencies. And I will talk about an agency called Australian Renewable Energy Agency. So this organization was set up in 2012. And that organization has been given funding by the government to support renewables and batteries. All right. So they opened up a new funding round. So every year, every few months, they actually have different areas where they offer funding to projects. So in December last year, they opened a new funding round, which actually covered large-scale battery storage projects in Australia. So these projects can be of different types, for example. And the amount available for these projects is $100 million. The funding round has opened on 1st of February and is closing at end of March, 31st of March this year. So this $100 million is going to be available for projects which actually can demonstrate advanced inverter capabilities. And when we talk about advanced inverter capabilities, we are talking about inverters which are just being experimented and being built in labs across the world. So the current sort of existing grid-connected batteries have inverters which are capable of doing many things. But now the focus is shifting to inverters which are called grid-forming inverters. So these inverters are essential for running a grid which has lots of renewables. And we are talking about grids which actually have 60, 70, 80, 90, or even 100% renewable, basically running the whole grid. When you have a situation where there is lots of renewables connected to the grid, what you expect is number of problems. And to solve those problems, you need smart inverters. You need advanced inverter capabilities. All right. So this $100 million is focused on projects, battery projects. So these battery projects have to be quite large. They are not. This funding is not meant for small battery projects. And the projects which are eligible under this category for this funding are new projects which have not been built. And the funding is also available for retrofit. So retrofit is basically existing projects which are either being built, completed, or they have already been committed. And these projects will be able to apply for funding and change the way they are going to connect to the grid by using these grid forming inverters. The funding is also available for expansion of existing projects. So Australia has a number of existing battery projects, as I mentioned briefly in the opening. The biggest battery in Australia was installed in 2017, which was located in South Australia. And that battery was 100 megawatt in size. Now we have, in Australia, we have several batteries which are 300 megawatt, but there are lots of projects in various stages of planning, which are going to be 500 megawatt battery storage to 1000 megawatt battery storage, or even higher. So lots of battery projects are being put forward. And interestingly, yesterday there was a news that New South Wales, which is a state within Australia, the capital of that state is Sydney. So New South Wales has a policy of having renewable energy zones. And in one of their renewable energy zones, which is located near Hunter Valley, they received proposals from industry which add up to $100 billion. So that's like stunning. That means there's a lot of projects which actually are keen to have their project in Australia. And we are talking about sort of investors from overseas. Majority of these projects will be getting money into Australia from overseas, right? So going back to the ARENA $100 million funding scheme, which is a recent scheme, this scheme will actually have 3 projects, or could be more projects, where half the money will be allocated to new build, and the other half will be for existing retrofit and expansion projects. So I'll just pause for 1 second and basically go into this whole thing about why are we having so many batteries in Australia. The main sort of reason for having so many batteries in Australia is twofold. One is energy storage is very useful to bring the price of electricity down. So when you have lower lower amount of fossil fuel based generation, then what you have is you have variable renewable electricity generation. And that variable electricity generation requires a backup through battery storage. So why are we talking about battery storage only? Because we have pumped hydro in Australia. We also have other storage technologies, but the main technology, which is very much financially viable at this point in time, is basically the lithium battery based energy storage projects. Dr. Dilawar covered lots of other technologies that are actually being used, experimented in Australia and overseas. But the issue is the lithium battery costs are declining very fast. So other technologies are really struggling to compete with lithium battery technologies. So that's kind of the main thing. And I'm not sure how much time I have, Dr. Dilawar.
Yeah.
I just want to cover 2 more things if I have 5 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah, just I want to also ask you to, if you can highlight some of the state government grants also, just beside the federal government.
Yeah, Sure. No, thank you for that. The main grant is now coming from New South Wales in renewable energy zones. So they have 5 renewable energy zones in New South Wales, which is quite a large state. And my knowledge of Western Australia is a bit rusted, so I'll ask Dr. Dilawar to cover that. But ACT, the Australian Capital Territory, also have a program available for 250 megawatt of battery storage. That other projects which are being installed in the Australian Capital Territory in Canberra, around Canberra, which has a 100 megawatt battery already committed and a 300 megawatt battery in a planning stage. There's a 10 megawatt battery which is also committed in the ACT. The New South Wales is a big state, and then also Victoria. Victoria also has a very aggressive plan for having lots of batteries. South Australia has a plan to install lots of batteries, but the main funding for these batteries in New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia is not coming as a grant. It's basically through either low interest loans or for simple injection of money. All right, so that's like a part funding of these projects. So all state governments are part funding these projects. Only ARENA is actually fully funding these projects, but that's dependent on how the project proposal is put forward, and the funding could be for the whole project or just for some parts of the project. So I think if I also go back to other schemes which exist in Australia, these schemes actually have been running for a long time. And I mentioned the Renewable Energy Target Scheme, which is a scheme which started in 2001 and is still running. The expiry of that scheme is in 2030. And until then, that scheme will incentivize solar and all renewable projects, which are installed in Australia through the Renewable Energy Certificate Scheme. So Dr. Dilawar, back to you.
Okay. Yeah, you have asked about Western Australia. Yes, there is a scheme here with the state government. So they provide the 25% cost of the batteries as a grant. So that can be for individual project itself. Then you can go and ask the government for 25% funding. They announce the funding time to time. And also you can match those funding with the federal government funding also. So total funding should not be more than 65% of the total project cost. So right now this funding you are mentioning about from ARENA funding, so for 70 megawatt of project, single project, and the funding will be, the grant will be $35 million per project. So that is the scheme. So here, if we can go for state government grant to attach with that, you can get another $10 million or so. So total you can get $45 million for a project of 70 megawatt. Also, you have to define the project in terms of the megawatt hours. So cost we consider the megawatt hours terms. So right now, as per my knowledge, the cost of per megawatt hour of installation is about US $700,000 per megawatt hours. You can correct me on that if any changes happened recently.
So Dr. Dilawar, I would also like to mention the problems being faced by the projects in Australia. So renewable projects and battery projects are facing one problem. So that problem can be described in one simple sentence, that is connection with the grid. So all the good points where the connection to the grid is available have already been taken. And now the project proponents have to look at funding some of the connection costs as well. So that's a problem that is being faced by many projects. Back to you, Dr. Dilawar.
Okay, then thank you very much for giving this insight to the funding in Australia. So, and if any of the company from India, they wants to develop any battery projects in Australia, So maybe either this International Business Council of Australia or Mr. Amarjot directly or me directly can help of any of the company from Australia or from overseas. It can be from anywhere. So a few companies from India, they approached me about that. So they are keen to develop some project, but I don't know their real interest. If anything comes out, maybe I will share with the participants and in the group, maybe next webinar. Yeah. But if anybody wants to explore the possibility, please talk to us. Okay, so now I invite Mr. Manoj Kumar Singh to speak on the and give a presentation on the project deployment opportunities for large-scale batteries in India. Mr. Manoj Kumar Singh. Manoj, you have to unmute your microphone.
Okay. Sorry. Is it audible now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So thanks, Dr. Dilawar, for giving me opportunity to speak on project development opportunities for large-scale batteries development. So I'll be also going to add angle of sustainability and net zero, because what we see, whatever the project development or renewable development or battery storage, whatever we are talking about or whatever we are doing to achieve sustainability and net zero targets. So this is a prime objective of developing renewables globally to achieve sustainability in energy and net zero carbon emissions. So now if we talk about what is the sustainability, what is the sustainable development, everyone is having different definitions of sustainability. But as per UN, there is a definition which is like sustainable development is a development that meet the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. So whatever we are doing today, how the future generation also can benefit, with this with the same resources, whatever available or whatever we are utilizing today. So we have to be, thinking about that and considering that into our practices and doing the developments. So renewable and battery storage, whatever we are developing because mainly to offset the emissions at large scale, and whatever the ecology system is there to maintain that ecology system for future generation. So if we talk about, there is a new term called ESG, environment, social, and governance, which is becoming very popular now. Like for environmental side, climate change, under environmental, if we look at this climate change strategies, biodiversity, water and wastewater management, energy management, emission management, and environmental system. So these are the attributes which comes under environmental. On social side, human resource management, equal opportunities, health, safety, human rights, local communities. So we have to think about that also while developing any any project, including the battery storage. And on governance side, business ethics, regulatory compliance, board and management performance, and stakeholder engagement. So these are the critical things which also we should consider while developing any projects. Now, coming to the emission. So there is a greenhouse gas GHG protocol, which has defined the emissions into three scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. I'm just putting or highlighting what is exactly scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Maybe some people will be aware, but maybe some other audience may not be aware. So just for sake of those audience, the scope 1 is basically talking about greenhouse gas emission that comes from owned and control sources. So whatever businesses or whatever development we are doing, and how it is emitting directly, to environment in terms of greenhouse gas emission, that covers under scope 1. For example, for thermal power plant boiler operation, fuel from directly owned vehicles. So these are the example which comes under scope 1 emissions. Scope 2 is greenhouse gas emission that comes from purchase of energy, heat, steam, or cooling. So, for example, purchase electricity from a distribution company. If that comes under scope 2, if that electricity, how green that electricity is. If it is a green electricity, then you are fulfilling your scope 2, you are reducing your scope 2 emissions. And if you're purchasing brown electricity, so you are basically contributing towards more pollution. Scope 3 is defined as a greenhouse emission that are indirectly generated from operations that are not covered by the previous scopes. So whatever covered in the scope 1 and 2, which is and apart from that, whatever other emissions are there, that comes under scope 3. For example, like employee commuting and business travels, like how we are traveling, where we are using public transport or where we are using, gasolines more. So that all, or outsource activities, that also comes under scope 3. So this is just brief about the carbon emission is scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Now, how to reduce this emissions? So for that, measurement, reduction, and offset, these are the 3 strategies which need to be adopted. So first, we need to measure whatever things we are doing, how it is, what is the absolute value of that in terms of emissions. Then how we can reduce that. This is the second strategy. So for that, whatever development need to be done, or whatever retrofittings or whatever, like renewables development or battery storage project development for fulfilling scope 1 and scope 2 requirement. So that will come under reduction strategies. And then third is the offsetting. If suppose something which we are not directly able to reduce, so how we can offset that? So that strategy also need to be developed by basically by developing more nature-based solutions or technology solutions for offsetting and ensuring the third party assurance or credit for offsetting. So these are the you can say 3 key steps for emission reduction. And large-scale battery storage development is one of the area where we can directly reduce emissions. So now if we talk about recently in COP26, we have seen India has committed to develop 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel based energy generation by 2030 and reduce the total projected carbon emission by 1 billion tons by 2030. To attain this target, India needs a significant amount of grid storage and large increase in number of EV. So EV is also one of the important areas where we need to look into. Why this battery storage now? The question is why not? Why now? So the key factors of key elements are like globally climate action and need to integrate higher share of RE is happening. So this is the right time to enter into this segment. Second, the energy security. We are developing more renewables, but as we know, wind and solar are not firm. So to make them firm, we have to have more storage so that grid balancing will be there. To reduce the air pollution, increase electric vehicle ambition. We have targeted 30% EV by 2030. So to achieve that, we need to have mobility storage system also in place. Industrial development and indigenization also requires more battery storage to be placed to have firm power. And as we all know, most of the speakers already have highlighted, the cost of battery is also significantly falling down. So this is the right time to enter into this segment. Now, the opportunities for large-scale battery development, if we look at, there are many estimations done by many think tanks. Now, at present, around, you can say, the market size of large-scale battery in India is around $2 billion, where most of the development is happening in behind the meter or EV segment. But grid or stationary grid scale storage quantity is right now at present it is less. But there is an estimation like by 2030, the overall market size of battery in India is going to be more than 15 billion per year. And the annual demand of and the annual demand of battery will be more than 250 gigawatt hour per year. And most of the the demand will be created from stationary storage and EV segment side. So the demand from EV and stationary storage will be more. For example, the commercial four-wheeler vehicle, there is a good demand, in that segment. Same for grid support and ancillary services. The demand in next 10 years will be very high. Behind the meter demand also will pick up probably by 2025 onwards. So these are the areas where lots of demand will be created, especially on commercial four-wheeler vehicle, then electric buses, grid support and ancillary services, then C&I behind the meter. So these are the areas where lots of demand will be created in coming years. At present, if we look at lots of pilot-based project or small or medium-sized battery project already have been demonstrated in last 5 years, like Tata Power BSES, then TERI. So these projects, those projects are already developed, and there are certain projects which are under construction from CEL, National NTPC side, and lots of new projects are also auctioned by SECI. So new developments are keep on happening in battery front, and I think there is a huge opportunity for everyone to participate in this sunrising sector. So because if we look at the India RE capacity by 2030 will be 817 gigawatt. So to fulfill this 800, to stable this 870 gigawatt grid power, we need minimum 27 gigawatt of storage, which considering 4 hours of backup, which will be coming around 108 gigawatt hour storage energy. So this is a need of in next 10 years, this is an opportunity available to invest in battery sector in India. Thanks, Dr. Dilawar.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj, for this good presentation. So you have covered a lot in that. So we have got some questions. So now I move to the question and answer session. So the first question, I just do some easy one, is whether the recording of this is being done. Yes, we have recorded this webinar, and also it is live on the YouTube. So you can go through it and find on the YouTube also. Then there are some question about the recycling of the lithium ion batteries. So I think Amarjot, you would like to answer this question? Amarjot, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
For the recycling of the batteries,
yeah. There is an organization in Australia which is looking at recycling lithium ion batteries. But at this point in time, there are not many lithium ion batteries which are available for recycling. And there's also a plan for what they call it second life batteries. So that means the vehicle batteries will be actually taken out and they'll be basically checked each battery cell will be checked, and then they'll be reconfigured to make them as household storage batteries. So that's one thing that's happening. The grid batteries, where large amounts of lithium ion batteries will be coming towards the end of their life, that hasn't started yet, because the first large-scale lithium battery, grid-connected battery, was only installed just few years ago, 4 years ago. So I think that's a looming problem, which every country is going to face, and I think it's not going to be cheap. And so I think if research organizations and businesses can actually find a way of disaggregating the battery cells and then reconfiguring them or reusing them or using the raw materials, that will be a good thing. Sorry. Yeah. So that's what's happening. So I think it's work in progress. The private organization, which is actually working with several universities, is quite confident that they can actually find a way of recycling lithium-ion batteries at a below cost of the recovered materials. But at this point in time, the cost of recovering materials is more than the recovered materials from these batteries. Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Dr. Dilawar.
Yeah, this is a question already we answered that, but again you can answer. But the cost of lithium-ion batteries, the current cost. So I was of the view that it is about $700,000 per megawatt. So that's true, or it has come down? What is your view on this?
So look, the cost of lithium-ion batteries is reducing at a very, very fast rate. I have seen some articles, media articles, which actually are talking about $250 for each kilowatt hour. $250, which is quite low.
It is now or in the coming years?
It's now. It's now. That's what the manufacturers are paying.
Okay. Okay, then thank you for this answer. So now some questions are on the there are a number of questions on aluminum air batteries. So the one question is about what is the life of or how many cycles it can have. So this is not the storage battery, so there is no cycle on it. So this is simply a small power generator, and also this the recycling of these aluminum batteries. So we don't have much knowledge of that, but in India, this Indian Oil Corporation, they are planning to manufacture these batteries and selling to car manufacturers, and also they are going to provide the outlets for replacing the batteries at the petrol pumps. So then one car can drive up to 2,700 kilometers per battery, and then you have, after that you have to replace it. Maybe when you see they get the signals of 2,500 kilometers already, then you go to the nearby petrol pump and you change the new batteries. But for recycling purpose, they know much knowledge on that. But I heard this the material lost in generating of the power. The aluminum is lost in. So you can't recover the aluminum from there. So there is no recycling in that way of that, in that point of view. But from the this cathode point of view, yes, that is the material of graphite, then yes, that is recyclable. So maybe more knowledge will come in the future and we'll know more about it. But as per the energy density side, it is 8 times more than the lithium-ion batteries. So it is very good energy density battery. So just in comparison to the 495 kilometers of running a car with this Tesla car mainly on electric batteries, then you can run the 2,700 kilometers on a aluminum air batteries. Okay, this if any more questions, we can take the question now directly. Yeah, so you can put your microphone on and then you can speak. And regarding this, the sharing of the presentation, yes, you can send the email or the WhatsApp message to my phone number. This is +61 421-344-770. This is my WhatsApp number. You can send the message, and then I can send you the copy of the presentation. So there was only one presentation, so that can be shared. Otherwise, you can look on the YouTube channel, and also there's a recording available also. Yeah. Okay. If any more question? Hello. Any more question, please? So before we close, just I wanted to mention about the first battery project. So that was happened in Kalyanpura in Gujarat. So that was only the 2 kilowatt battery bank there. There was no even the generator there, dual generator. So then we inaugurated that system in 1985, and then we invited the power minister. That time, the Mr. Shankar Singh Baghela, he was the minister. So I was in charge for that project. So that we everything ready. We tested the system. It works very well. There were about 118 street lights, and then there the housing in the houses. There's some lights. Then also some black and white TVs there in that time. So that project was a good one, but the minister is supposed to come at 4 o'clock, but at 1 o'clock there was a heavy rain there, and the heavy rain for two hours. So after the rain, we switched on the system, and then all there were no light working, not even the homes and not on the street lights. So we were in a very great trouble. So how to see that? And the minister is coming in half an hour time or so. So then on the spot, I asked one of the village boy, okay, just to bring a ladder, and I want to climb on a pole. So I did the thing. I went to the pole and I opened the junction box, and there's a lot of water in the junction box. So this and all the fuses gone. So I just discussed the problem with the village boys and my staff there, and then what to do. And then all these village boys, they climb on the pole without ladder. They were so smart, and within 10-15 minutes, we replaced all the fuses. And after that, we put on the switch, and then all the lights were working. And the minister was there after 5 minutes only. After that, so that was the first of the project we have done. This is the hybrid battery project, and after that now we are talking about the gigawatts and all those things. So that was the time when this hybrid projects were started. Okay, then so there is no more question. Then I think we should close this webinar now, and I thank you all the speakers today. Also I thank you Mr. Harishankar, who organized all this the webinar today. Mr. Harishankar is the runs this company, Machine Maker. So if you need any support or anything, just you talk to him. So he's very helpful. Then also I now thank you all the participants who joined this webinar. So I think we have got maximum 61 participants. Those attended this webinar. So thank you very much, and we will see you in the future. Maybe next month we are planning another webinar, and in that we will send you the details of that, and we will ask you to register for that. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and